Dynasty won't be seen tonight, so we can bring you a very special episode of The Gen X Files. Welcome to The Gen X Files. I'm Jim.
I'm Adam.
And today's show is all about
The Rockford Files. I wish I had a video of you doing this. It's such a good theme song.
You know, I wish somebody would do a mashup of that and Sanford and Son.
I mean, they're pretty similar, those bass lines.
It's the harmonica.
Such a good time. We'll talk about the theme song soon.
Mike Post.
Mike Post, he's excellent. He did like 50,000 different TV theme songs.
Very prolific.
He was. Take yourself back to 1974. On February 4th, heiress Patty Hearst is kidnapped outside her apartment in Berkeley, California by the Symbionese Liberation Army.
Yeah.
Eventually leads to her helping them rob banks, culminating in a 2-hour shootout on May 17th with the LAPD leaving 6 members of the SLA dead.
She was one of the first cases of the Stockholm Syndrome.
Yes.
And she was completely brainwashed by the SLA.
She was.
And she was holding that machine. The picture of her holding that machine gun with that beret on is it's iconic, man.
Yeah, it is.
Then she went on to do John Waters films. So,
yeah. Because God knows when you're part of a terrorist organization.
She was brainwashed.
I know.
I mean, it's a really interesting story.
Was she?
Oh, yes. I watched the Patty Hearst story. The 70s TV movie.
All right. On March 4th, People magazine's first issue was published in the U.S. with Mia Farrow on the cover.
That's crazy. I really thought that was around for much longer.
That's why I put it in, because I thought it was from like the 50s.
Maybe I'm thinking of Movie Tone.
Oh, Movie Tone.
I don't know. That was rough.
Us magazine or something?
I think Us came after People.
Sounds like an 80s
I'm not up
thing.
on my tabloids. Or I don't know if those are tabloids. What are those?
Yeah, I would call it.
Glamour.
I'm sorry, a tabloid.
A tabloid.
A tabloid, yes.
Wouldn't they just be celebrity magazines?
Yeah, but it's still kind of the tabloids. I mean,
But it's more like, look how great this person is.
Yeah, it's not like making stuff up about them, but it's still like...
It's the...
they pry deep.
The Cameron Burr whatever diet from... What's that girl from... How did Ashley Kate Olsen get so skinny? Depression.
March 8th, depression. And cigarettes. March 8th, the final episode of the Brady Bunch airs.
Again, this whole timeline has rocked my world, man, because I thought that ended a lot sooner. I thought that was done in like 69 or something.
Oh, really?
I didn't think I was alive during
I thought it went later. For some reason, I thought it ended in the late 70s.
Yeah, it's weird. It's messing with my mind, man.
Reruns and syndication just kind of screws everything up. But I mostly wanted to include it because of the titanic shift between the themes of the Brady Bunch and stuff like the Rockford Files.
Well, it was just so crazy that the Brady Bunch ended with Bobby murdering everybody and then setting the house on fire with himself still in it.
It was the basis of the first TV movie for the Rockford Files.
Yeah, he's just
the murders.
Bobby's just sitting there
Brady Bunch.
with the flames engulfing him. There's the story. It was really sad.
Yeah.
I was surprised. Yeah. But you know who made it? Tiger.
Of course he did.
Yeah, because dog ain't going to burn, baby.
Dog knows how to run away from fire.
He ran over to the butcher. What's his name?
Al? No,
was
not
it?
Al. No, it was... Or was it Al?
I don't know. Alice loved that butcher.
No, it was Alice. Alice, that's right. It was Alice and...
It'd be weird if it was Alice and Al.
Al and Alice.
It was like Bob the Butcher or something. I don't know. Let us know.
Yeah, March 27th, premiere of the Rockford Files on NBC, which it was technically the premiere of the TV movie, which was kind of their quote-unquote backdoor pilot.
Yeah, but it was 100%, except for the fact that Rocky was a different actor.
It was a different Rocky.
It was out of the gate the show.
It was the show, yeah. And the only other difference was that they didn't include the phone message at the beginning.
Right.
That was added in later for syndication.
Right, which the Simpsons couch gag is a visual representation of the phone gag, which is one of the first...
The phone gag is phenomenal.
Oh, it's great.
Yeah.
It's always like, beep. Mr. Rockford, this is Bob Franks from the collection agency. My favorite is... Mr. Rockford, this is Bob Johnson from the Worldwide Encyclopedia Corporation. You haven't returned the first volume of your book, so we'll be sending you all the other volumes at a considerable markup. Boop. No.
It's so great. They were so fun. They had literally nothing to do with the plot or the show. It was just some random, usually him owing money.
Yes.
Or checks bouncing.
Yes.
It's like, this is the supermarket. Your check is bouncing in. Should I tear it up? I'll put it with the others.
Exactly.
All right, let's go. Origins of the Rockford Files came with producers Roy Huggins and Stephen J. Cannell.
Huggins.
You know, Roy Huggins. They created the Rockford character as a rather significant departure from typical television detectives at the time, essentially a Brett Maverick as a modern detective.
Yeah, just an every guy,
Yeah, just a dude. He's not...
Faults and all, baby.
Yeah, a lot of faults. Roy Huggins, he was a novelist in the late 40s with much success. He entered Hollywood with a contract to write and direct movies starting in 1952. Huggins was a member of the Communist Party USA until the Nazi-Soviet Non-Aggression Pact of 1939.
Were you? Have you ever been a member of the Communist Party, sir?
He was actually in front of the House Un-American Activities. He named 17 people who had already been named. They'd already been named. Yeah, but they'd already been named. So it wasn't like... It was like he knew that they would already have it.
Still a little shady.
Deal. But he had to do something. I mean...
Other guys didn't.
I agree. But I just want to point out that he was a part of the Communist Party until they started cozying up with Nazis. That's how bad the Nazis are.
Okay. Well, the Nazis are pretty bad, Adam. Yeah. Way to take a stance.
There's some people that don't believe that right now, Jim.
Those people don't really know what Nazis are.
He moved to television in 1955 with a Warner Brothers contract. He created Maverick, the TV show, in 1957, which ran for 5 seasons, and introduced him to James Garner.
Yes, Maverick is a great Western. It was a comedy. And Brett Maverick's like a gambler and a ne'er-do-well who always gets caught up. He's kind of a bounty hunter, too, I think.
Yeah, I mean, similar to Rockford Files, like, he kind of gets caught up in stuff and does things. Although in Rockford Files, obviously, he's getting hired to do these things. Right. But, like, Maverick would happen upon these things.
You know what's crazy about Maverick? There was a period where Garner couldn't do it, and they brought in James Bond, Roger Moore. They brought in Roger Moore as, like, his English cousin who came in and was like, he was still Maverick.
Yeah,
but he wasn't Brett Maverick, so he filled in for him for a while. It was really weird.
That is weird.
And also, Stuart Margolin was also on Maverick.
Oh, really?
Playing a very similar character to Angel. Kind of like, the same kind of...
Brett, you gotta help me, Brett.
Bretty, I'm in trouble, Bretty.
Roy Huggins created 77 Sunset Strip in 1958. Huggins was also created what became known as he was created by his parents. Huggins also created what became known as the Huggins Contract. Due to Warner Brothers circumventing his creative property.
Sounds like a really weird thing that you do at the massage parlor or at the house of prostitution.
If it wasn't for Roy Huggins, literally we wouldn't have TV the way we do now.
Wow.
Because he was the first one that had a clause in his contract that said, if I create it, it's mine.
Ooh.
And this is how now a lot of people, like, let's say, like David Chase with House, like a lot of these people will essentially just create a pilot and then their name's on it forever and they always get money for it.
Yeah.
But now, granted, Roy Huggins had a good point for this because he had helped create a TV show and he got screwed out a ton of money.
Right, so he learned his lesson.
Yeah, so that's why he eventually quit Warner Brothers and moved to Universal, but he put this as a boilerplate into his contract, and everyone just started mimicking it because it was money.
Well, yep. Money likes
it makes
money.
sense. But he was the first one. So, but he became vice president of television for Universal in 1962 and created The Fugitive in 1963.
Nice.
Before eventually creating Rockford Files with Stephen J. Cannell, who was the other creator of Rockford Files.
The Fugitive, carrying on the prejudice against amputees that goes on till today. Everybody is afraid of amputees.
You only have one arm, I can't trust you. Sorry.
Exactly.
Yeah. Stephen J. Cannell is actually dyslexic. He would hire typists to help him with what he called his spelling problem. He still had it up until the day he died. He never got over his dyslexia. I don't know if you can.
I don't know.
He's still a great writer. He started with It Takes a Thief, starring Robert Wagner in 1968. He wrote for Ironside and Columbo.
Nice.
He had a really nice, deep, rich private detective, or I guess
detective,
criminal case kind of thing.
Crime.
Yeah, crime.
Fiction.
Crime fiction. There you go. Thank you. In 1971, he received a telephone call from friend Herman Saunders, who was the producer on Jack Webb's police series Adam 12. They needed
One Adam 12. One Adam 12.
Exactly. They needed a script right away, and Saunders asked if Cannell would be interested in writing it. He literally delivered the script the next day.
Nice. Well, Adam 12 wasn't a brain trust.
It wasn't. But he worked fast, and he did it. He became the story editor for the show until it was canceled in 1973. He was put on contract by Universal Television in 1973 at the same time. Stephen J. Cannell said of his time there,
I signed a deal as a head writer to make $600 a week. I was the cheapest writer on the lot. It was the lowest deal you could do by Writers Guild standards. But I'd been working for my dad for $7,000 a year. I was at Universal for 8 years, and I never renegotiated my deal but once. It was late in my arrangement with Universal. There was one thing in my deal that my agent had managed to get in there. I had good fees for my pilots. The reason they did it is they never thought I was going to write a pilot, so they'd give me $70,000 to write a 2-hour pilot and $100,000 production bonus if I ever got it made. Then I became the hottest pilot writer at Universal. I was writing 2 or 3 pilots a season. I was making $400,000 a year in pilot fees.
Cannell went on to create Chase, Beretta, and Baba Black Sheep, along with like 50 other pilots.
People hated having meetings with him because of his voice.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Baba Black Sheep was great. Do you remember that?
No, I never saw that.
Oh, it was great. It was Robert Conrad, and they were like this World War II fighting squadron.
Oh, really?
And but yeah, a lot of the same guys.
Wow.
All these guys stuck together.
Yeah.
We'll get to it, but even like when they brought the movies back, like a bunch of crew members and cast members came back.
Oh yeah. They were very tight knit.
People were loyal back then.
Yeah. So after he created Rockford Files, just to jump ahead a little bit with Stephen J. Cannell, just because he had a long career. Upon leaving Universal, he created his own production company where he created shows like
10th Street and Brown Shoe with Ben Vereen and yes, Jeff Goldblum. Yeah, very young and sexy, skinny. Yes. He also did The Greatest American Hero, which is one of the greatest television series.
Oh, yeah.
About a guy who finds a super suit with no instructions. And Robert Culp is the FBI guy that
unexpected
helps him.
hero. Yeah,
so good. Can't wait to do the show on that. Have a really funny story about William Catt. The A-Team. Oh, yeah. With B.A. Baracus and Face and Hannibal and the other guy.
Those are the people.
And then Hardcastle and McCormick. Ooh, which is a great show with the guy that played on Family Affair. He was the uncle, and then the guy. And then there was Riptide with those guys on a boat. And then there was 21 Jump Street with a sexy young guy named Johnny Depp that we all know and love. And then there was Hunter with an ex-football player who, I forget his name too. But he was tough and rumble tough.
Hunter brought back Roy Huggins. Stephen J. Cannell said of Huggins,
Roy was in the driver's seat where he belonged. Nobody does it better or with more style. Roy Huggins is my godfather, my hero, and my friend. They don't come any better.
Stephen J. Cannell created or co-created nearly 40 television series, mostly crime dramas. In the process, he had, by his own count, scripted more than 450 episodes and produced or executive produced over 1,500 episodes of TV.
That is an accomplishment. That is insane.
450 episodes written. That is
of an hour long.
crazy.
And these were when hour longs were like 50
minutes. Yeah.
49 to 50 minutes.
It is crazy.
It's a lot of work, man. That's a lot of work. And that's week to week work, man. That's like, you're jumping through hoops.
Yeah.
There weren't delays back then. There weren't
No.
production. You got it done or you got fired.
In the series storyline, Jim Rockford had served time in California's San Quentin prison in the 1960s due to a wrongful conviction.
Now, I gotta ask, was he a cop?
No.
He wasn't a cop?
No.
So how does he know Becker?
From being an ex-con?
This is weird.
I don't know. I mean, they never really explored that.
Because we know Angel because he was in prison
Sure.
with Angel.
Yeah,
we know
he
Rocky
was
because he's
Sully's.
his dad.
Yeah.
We know Beth because she was his lawyer, but
I don't know if they ever explored it. Granted, I haven't seen the last couple seasons, so I don't know if they ever explored the relationship between Becker. I know eventually Becker gets promoted and he gets much higher, but I mean, they might have.
Well,
they bring
in the
his
first
wife and
season he
stuff.
becomes lieutenant. He becomes sergeant. He passes the lieutenant's exam.
In the first season?
I believe so.
Oh, I think it was later.
Really?
I think it was later.
I don't know. I've been jumping around, but that's the one because I always thought that he used to be a cop, and that's why the cops can't stand him because they thought he was a dirty cop. But I also know that the cops can't stand him because he closes all the cases that they couldn't close.
Yeah, they
So
didn't like him because but that was established in the TV movie that Becker was trying to keep these cases open, and then his superiors just kept telling him no. Like, you don't have anything, toss him. After 5 years in prison, he was pardoned, not paroled, a distinction frequently mentioned in plot points. His infrequent jobs as a private investigator barely allow him to maintain his dilapidated mobile home, which doubles as his office in a parking lot on a beach in Malibu, California. Rockford wears low-budget, off-the-rack casual clothing and does his best to avoid physical altercations, although he is more than able to hold his own in a fistfight.
Yeah, well, I mean, the one thing about him that I do like that's different than Magnum and stuff is, like, Magnum's always broke, never really gets paid. And Rockford gets screwed out of a lot of money, too. But he also gets his bonuses, like, he got his $2,000 bonus from this thing. And so he does get paid. And he also, it's so funny because he's very adamant about charging $250 a day plus expenses.
$200.
Plus $200 a day. Plus expenses.
Plus expenses.
Got to put them expenses in there.
I didn't charge you for my new pajamas I got. I did charge you for the toothpaste.
But that's a lot of money back then.
It was. In 2019 dollars, the last data that I have, it was $1,050 a day.
But he got results, and that was the one thing. He was very confident when he did.
He solved cases. He wouldn't take a case unless he knew he could solve it.
And he wouldn't take a case, well, at least at the beginning, wouldn't take a case if it was open.
Yeah.
But that's the thing about all these guys, like him and Magnum and Columbo. They may be failed human beings, or they may be, extremely flawed.
Yeah.
But they're very good at what they do, and they're also confident in what they do. They don't there's no false modesty about their skills as investigators. It's like, I'm going to solve.
Oh no, they know. Yeah. They know when something triggers that little piece of the brain that's like, no, that's not right. Then they're gonna dive into it,
and also
they get it done.
Becker, he doesn't make fun of his investigative prowess. He makes fun of him as a person, his clothes, his him being a scumbag, whatever it is, him using his phone, him taking advantage. But he respects him as an investigator.
Sure, of course. He rarely carries his Colt Detective Special revolver, for which he has no permit, and prefers to talk his way out of trouble.
Keeps it in the cookie jar. There's an episode where it gets stolen from the cookie jar and planted in a homicide, framing him.
I feel like I saw that episode long before we ever talked about this. He works on cold cases, missing persons investigations, and low-budget insurance scams, and repeatedly states that he does not handle open cases to avoid trouble with the police.
Yeah.
There was a great episode with Tom Selleck playing Lance White, another private investigator, but it was one of his third or fourth episodes that he was on, and he has a very good relationship with the cops, but he was essentially under this non-disclosure agreement, and he tells the cop, I'm going to tell you this stuff, but you can't tell anybody.
Right.
And Rockford's over there like, what are you doing? And he's just like, well, I'm going to tell you this. And
well, yes, Lance. Tom Selleck, who went on to become Magnum PI.
Yes.
He was on several episodes. They were going to do a pilot. Actually, the Magnum pilot was his Lance White character.
Yeah.
And people just didn't like it. They didn't want another James Bond.
Yeah.
I think they filmed it, and it was just like, nope. And then Selleck was like, well, what if we did this? And so, and turned it into Magnum. It's just a testimony to how great Tom Selleck is and how likable and watchable that, they got his own series. And even though the pilot didn't work, they were like, well, we're going to make it work.
Well, and James Garner was very much that way, too. Like, I could sit here and watch him read the phone book.
Yeah.
Like, there's something magnetic about him that you're just like, I have to watch this.
Well, he's just so natural. What he does is natural. It's like watching a dude. He reacts.
Yeah.
He reacts naturally. He's not a superhero. He's a pudgy, middle-aged war guy who's a little beat up and rough around the edges.
Yeah. He's had a bad hand dealt to him his entire life.
There's a few things I've noticed watching this show. Guys just left their coats. He's like, it's hot in here. He takes his coat off and just leaves it. And then they leave. And then he's just like, what are you made of coats? You got so many coats, you can just leave your coats?
So broke all the time. He has to buy a new coat every day.
It takes a very gentle rap to the head to knock you out.
Oh, yeah.
Takes an even gentler car wreck to knock you out. Your head usually hits the steering wheel and it'll knock you out.
I mean, that's not entirely untrue.
You could have I could buy you lunch and me lunch, and it would cost me about 80 cents.
Yeah.
Tip.
Yeah, exactly. A couple hot dogs at the hot dog stand.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so crazy. That's one thing too that I love about watching this show. And anybody who likes LA or lives in LA, this show is a really great time capsule of what the Valley and downtown
so much
looked at like in the 70s.
So great, so great. All right, let's take a quick break. We're going to talk about the production.
Like Zoinks, man. It's Shaggy. And Ruby-Roo. And like when we're cruising around in the Mystery Machine, man, we're like always listening to the Gen X Files. With Raymond Radham. Now on Spotify. New episodes every Friday. All celebrity voices are poorly impersonated. Production.
All right, so the cast, obviously James Garner as James Rockford. Eventually we're going to do a Garner episode because he was fascinating.
Oh, yeah.
And had an amazing life. So we're not going to go too deep into him, but I will just say that James Garner was as close to the character as you could get without actually being the character.
Yeah, he was a sweet guy, kind of grumpy, no nonsense, didn't take guff.
Yeah.
And smoked cigarettes, drank whiskey.
He was a Korean War vet,
Yeah.
much like Rockford. James Garner was the first person drafted from Oklahoma in the Korean War.
Nice.
From Oklahoma, I don't think he was the first person drafted ever, but like he had 2 Purple Hearts. Like he was an amazing human being.
Well, back then, all those guys were war heroes.
Yeah.
Jimmy Stewart, all these guys that grew, they were either in World War II or Korea. These guys were. It was a different breed. The reason why these guys are such good animals. I was gonna say, the reason why these guys were such great actors is because they've been through some stuff.
Yeah.
Man.
Well, yeah, they've seen it. They lived it. I mean,
it's like they lived a life beyond just being a pampered actor.
Yeah, you don't
went
have
to
to.
war.
You don't have to pretend what death is like. It was there.
No,
Yeah.
And James Garner was a very loyal guy. Like, we're gonna get into Stuart Margolin, but those guys worked together for decades.
Yeah.
Buddies. And same with like Isaac Hayes was a good friend of his, and he kept bringing him back on the shows.
Yeah.
And I got to say this, man. The only other character that I know of named Gandalf was Isaac Hayes in Rockford Files, known as Gandy. They called him Gandy, but his name was Gandalf Hayes. And his name was Isaac Hayes.
Right.
So it's weird that James Garner was Jim Rockford and Isaac Hayes was Gandalf Hayes. They didn't have a lot of like name creativity.
No, they didn't.
In the writer's room.
Noah Beery Jr. was Rockford's retired father. He came from a long line of actually pretty good actors. Like his uncle won an Oscar in the 30s. His father was an established actor.
Oh my God,
he
Barry,
had been around.
Barry had been around too. A great, a lot of westerns you'll see Barry show up. And such a great. I want to know Barry to be my dad. Think about Rocky. Rocky was a truck driver when he always believed his son was innocent, sold his truck, lost his business, lost almost everything, getting his son out of jail. Always so worried. Sonny, what you doing, Sonny? Why are you going out there, Sonny? You staying here with me. Why you gotta be all crazy? And he's always like, Sonny, why don't you just be a truck driver? We'll just get a rig. And, he's so worried about
Of course.
about Sonny Boy.
Well, he had to take care of him.
Yeah.
Who else was going to take care of him?
Well, James Rockford was taking care of Rocky.
Well, of course.
I just
his
love-
dad. Yeah.
I just love that Noah Barry's nickname was Pidge.
Yeah. Good old Pidge.
That shows you what a cutie pie he was. His
was.
name was Pidge. He was the sweetest. He was just a really sweet guy.
He was. Joe Santos as Sergeant Dennis Becker, Rockford from the LAPD. They helped him run prints and license plates and stuff.
Such a wrongly named person.
Yeah.
He does not look like a Dennis Becker.
Yeah, I know.
Joe
It's very
Santos.
odd. Yeah, it's very odd.
And he's very Italian, I
Yeah,
think.
he looks very Italian.
Joe Santos
I mean,
is always
yeah.
like, what are you doing?
Yeah. Stuart Margolin is Evelyn Angel Martin, his former prison friend. Angel
go help
is untrustworthy, pathologically lying con artist whose schemes constantly get Jim in trouble, yet Jim remains his friend.
Jimmy, listen to me, Jimmy. You gotta help me, Jimmy. They're gonna kill me, Jimmy. Hang on, you gotta give me. Go, that's down,
Did you
Jimmy.
do it?
Jimmy.
Oh, did you do it? That's my favorite in the beginning.
Did you do it?
He's Angel is one of the best characters on TV because he always shows up. Like there's an episode where his sister marries like the DA and he's just exploiting it, like nobody's ever
Oh,
exploited
yeah,
anything. He's like a Trump child on steroids, the way he exploits it. You know, he comes into money. He's just such an opportunist. When we first meet him, he's like he's got a cigarette dangling, and he's working at the newspaper because his sister must have got married a lot, or he had a lot of sisters, because it was always his brother-in-law, his new brother-in-law. But he was like, Jimmy, and he's like, yeah, I did it, Jimmy. I rubbed that bank.
Yeah, because
And
he
he's like,
just
"Oh,
wants
I
to
thought
know.
you were
Yeah.
innocent." He's like, "No, Jimmy, I did it." And he's like, okay. And he's like, "Did you do it, Jimmy?" He's like, "No, I didn't do it. I was pardoned." "Yeah, okay, you pardoned, but did you do it? You did it, Jimmy?" "No, I didn't." "Well, I didn't do it either." It's like, well,
it's
you can't take it back.
You already said you did.
He was just so great. He also directed a lot of the episodes.
Yeah.
And he directed a ton of TV.
Yeah. He was a very good creative artist.
Oh, and just one of those character actors that just has so much going on and is so watchable.
Yeah.
And just so good at being annoying. Like one of those guys that is just so perfect being annoying. But he ended up directing. He directed all of the TV movies that they came back for.
Yeah.
For Rockford Files. He directed James Garner in. There was like an HBO movie, The Glitter Dome. He directed The Glitter Dome with John Lithgow, and David Chase brought him on to direct episodes of Northern Exposure.
Oh yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But every 70s show he did. Love
Yeah, he was
Boat,
around. Yeah.
Magnum, and he was on all those shows too.
Yeah.
It's just like that guy was so
Oh,
prolific.
he was everywhere. Yeah.
And he's still working today. Like he was on the new X-Files reboot as Dr. They.
Oh yeah.
And he just had a movie come out in 2019. So hopefully
Nice.
he's still going strong. That guy is just, a big theater guy. Just one of the like under the radar, a guy that that's just
Yeah.
been constantly working for 60 years.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And just just such a good actor. We need to do like an unsung hero show about all these guys that have just been flipping around for like the last 50 years doing amazing work, and everybody's like, yeah, I know that guy.
Gretchen Corbett as Elizabeth Beth Davenport, Jim's lawyer and sometime girlfriend.
Yeah, little Beth.
She was fired from the show after season 4 due to contract disputes with Universal and Garner's production company, Cherokee Productions.
Nah, that's a bummer.
Yeah, and she was replaced by some dude. I mean, a different lawyer character came on.
Who
some
he
guy.
wasn't sometimes involved with.
He was not involved with, no. Other notable guest stars, Dennis Dugan played Richie Brockelman.
Yeah, that was another backdoor pilot. Richie Brockelman, Private Eye.
Which only, I think, had 5 episodes, maybe.
And
but
rightly so.
did not really do well.
Richie, this is the problem with a lot of these spin-off shows is these guys were great with Garner.
Yeah.
But then you give them their own thing, and it's like, Richie Brockelman didn't have legs, man. That guy was just kind of, he was not engaging.
It wasn't something, he wasn't interesting enough.
No.
He was a great guest star. He was a great supporting character.
Yes.
Should not have had his own show.
No, not at all.
Isaac Hayes and Lou Gossett Jr., we talked about before, also had their own...
Gabby and Gandy.
Gabby and Gandy, or Gandy and Gabby? I don't know, one of the two.
Which is really funny because that was another backdoor pilot.
Right.
Where Gandalf, he's such a complex character. Gandalf Hayes he's a guy that Rockford knew in prison. And he was in prison for murdering his girlfriend. And he was the guy that all the new fish, they would put him in with Gandy for a week when they first got to prison, and then they'd never want to be back with Gandy again. That's how they kept him in line. And he was in prison for 20 years for killing his girlfriend. So he gets out of prison. He's all along saying, I didn't do it, Rockfish. Called Rockford Rockfish. I didn't do it, Rockfish. So he gets out of prison and wants Rockfish to help him clear his name. So he and Rockford, do the whole investigation and investigate the whole thing. They find out that her best friend had been holding on to this letter all this time that his girlfriend wrote explaining that she had killed herself because she couldn't get out of the relationship with Gandalf because he was beating her.
Oh.
And he was beating her.
So he's still an asshole.
Still. And this is what's great. So he listens to that, and all through the episode, he's just this really, think of like Mr. T without any sort of like decorum or restraint.
Yeah.
From the A-Team, not the man, but the character. He's just this this pure punch kind of, I'll get really mad, I'm going to punch you.
Period.
Yeah, exactly. So he gets real quiet. He walks outside. There's this look on his face. And old Jim Rockford comes out and sits down next to him. And he's like, well, Gandy, what do you, you're clear. She it was suicide. And he's like, Rockfish, she killed herself because of me. And he has this realization and he's crying. And he's like, she did it because of me. And and then Rockford's like, well, she made the choice to do it. Plus, she could have always gotten away from me, but she always came back. Which is weird. I get Rockford's trying to help his friend.
Yeah,
it was a little on the edge. But it's a testament to these complex characters.
Yeah.
That this guy did, because he was always like, I never hurt her as much as she hurt me. But it's like he realized that he trapped her to the point, and this character of Gandalf Hayes keeps coming back and having growth and becoming even more of a character. And it's just, that's what's great. These unredeemable, redeemable characters that they had on the show is what was really great about it. It was the TV version of the 70s underbelly. As much as you could get.
It's interesting to see, especially in the mid-late 70s, of a character realizing their toxic masculinity and then trying to get over it and trying to be a better person.
Well, he's still when he comes back and Rockford he tries to get him a job with Gabby. And they set up the pilot with that. He's still a fisties guy.
Of course, he's still a big bruiser. I mean, that's going to happen.
He's a little bit less.
Punch first, ask questions later.
Oh, there's a great scene in that episode where they're like, we're gonna go into this bar, and Louis Gossett Jr. is like, look, let me do all the talking, because he's a smooth talk Gabby. He's called Gabby for a reason, because he's smooth talking.
Talker.
He knows lots of facts. He can talk real fast. So he's like, fine. And they get in, and it's a Nazi bar, like full on swastikas everywhere. These guys are dressed in the brown shirts. They're Nazis.
Wow.
And then Isaac Hayes is like, still want to do the talking? And then they end up blah, blah, blah. And finally they beat the crap out of all of them and shoot Hitler's picture with a shotgun. It's very satisfying. But it's really cool the way. And then at the end, which is so funny, is Louis Gossett Jr. holds court and explains to them why how Nazism doesn't work in America and how other different philosophies of socialism, Marxism, it's just really funny the way. It was an interesting pilot. It was but it was just a show again. It was
ended
hard
up
to sustain.
Yeah, but it ended up just being an episode. I mean, it never really went anywhere. Much like the others. I mean, they just didn't really. But they always brought the characters back.
Oh yeah.
Regardless, they always brought the characters back. Some other notable guest stars:
Ed Harris, James Woods, Lindsay Wagner, Rob Weiner, Robert Loggia. I'm Robert Loggia. Suzanne Summers, James Cromwell, Jamie Cromwell, Bill Mummy, otherwise known as Billy Mummy from Lost in Space, Abe Vigoda, Fish, Joseph Cotton, Ed Beatty, Dionne Warwick, Rita Moreno, Leif Erikson, Lauren Bacall. I just watched the Dionne Warwick one. God bless it, she has an amazing voice.
Oh, yeah. And this is a very small list of the cast because there was a lot more. They always pulled in film stars to come in. And it was actually one of the reasons that the show, part of the reason the show ended up getting canceled, because the show became very expensive because they hired a lot of film stars and paid them like they were doing a film.
And they shot on location.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it was
the cost of the show shot up dramatically as the show went on.
It's a mini movie, you know, and there's a lot of two-parters that were basically movies.
Which the irony now is that I looked up, we've been watching Hawkeye, and I just looked up the cost for Hawkeye. 6 episodes, $150 million they spent on that. Wow. $25 million an episode.
Good gravy, man.
So really, Rockford was a deal.
What was Rockford going?
I don't know any numbers on it.
I would say probably $500,000 an episode, maybe.
Yeah. They claimed by the end, the studio claimed that they were losing a couple $100,000 on every episode.
They're lying. They lied.
Yeah.
It's baloney. It's just they didn't have as much control over the show as they wanted because of his production company. The 70s was the beginning of the corporate takeover of Hollywood, where it was the beginning of like agents and studios really flexing their muscles and trying to corral all these actors and their production companies.
I mean,
and,
the contracts had stopped. Like they had control of the contracts, and then that all kind of went out the window. And they were like, well, "What are we going to do to control these people?"
Yeah, because you're exactly right. The studio system, they used to have a contract system, like Harrison Ford and Clint Eastwood. All these guys were under contract by different studios where they would pay them $500 a week, and then go be in this wrestling movie, go be in this movie. And it was like they would get the money, and they would get extra money for being in the movie.
Yeah.
But they had a stable of actors that they paid very low to retain them and control them.
Yes.
And then once that ended, this is the turbulent period where they're like, well, how do we control them?
Right. What do we do?
Because James Garner was a huge star with a lot of power.
Yes.
He was not just
and he knew this.
Yes. He was a huge TV star, a huge film star. He was one of those unicorns that did both huge films
able to
and
jump back
huge
and forth,
television. Yes. And radio. But and animation voiceover.
And commercials. Like
yes, the Kodak commercial he had with what's her name?
Did that for like 15 years.
Everybody thought they were married.
Yeah.
You know, it was like this the Meredith Baxter Burney.
No, it wasn't Meredith Baxter Burney. I don't remember her name, but it was But
they just had this amazing chemistry. Anyway, he was so beloved, and so he was one of these guys that it's like they kind of had to not necessarily make an example of him, but turn off the spigot because they didn't want to have a bunch of like production, okay, well, everybody's going to, want all of this profit sharing and, it's scummy. It's scummy.
It's very corporate. The show's pilot was written by Stephen J. Cannell, who also wrote 36 episodes. Juanita Bartlett, one of the show's producers and Garner's partner at Cherokee Productions, wrote 34 episodes. David Chase wrote 16 episodes. He later went on to create Northern Exposure and The Sopranos.
He was also a producer on Rockford for many years.
Yes,
many seasons.
He definitely cut his teeth on Rockford Files.
You can see his rumblings because his episodes are pretty dark. There is one episode where like the police chief's wife gets beaten to death and put in a trunk, and the officer's like, man, this car stinks. And, and they open the trunk, and he's like, it's the chief's wife. Oh boy. And then Becker gets the case, unwinnable case, because he's got to go like,
well, what do you do?
And so he gets Rockford. Anyway, God, I love that show. But still, it's like he had some pretty gritty.
He did a lot of organized crime stuff in the show.
You didn't realize how big the mob was apparently in Los Angeles in the 70s because it was all mob, baby.
Huge. Roy Huggins wrote for the show during the first season, always using the pen name John Thomas James, which was the name of his 3 children. He only wrote under that name because he became an executive, and he didn't want people to think that he had, whatever.
I get it.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to think that he's pushing his own agenda.
Yeah. Huggins' contributions to the show ended midway through the first season after he submitted a script rewrite direct to set as the episode was shooting without getting approval from any other writer or producer. Oof. Garner, trying to work with material on set, felt the rewrite was unsatisfactory and could not figure out why it had been approved for shooting. When he discovered that neither Cannell nor any of the other production staff members knew anything about the rewrite, Garner issued a directive that Cannell, not Huggins, had final say in all script material. Because he was that powerful, he could do that.
And that's smart, because he's like, it's just not sustainable. And it's a waste of everybody's time, because it's like, look, if you're going to throw your mediocre work through, we're going to have to stop production and fix it anyway. No, you're not the right guy. Another reason why Garner was so successful is he knew who to put where. He knew. Look, he directed one episode of Rockford Files only because he had to.
Because the director just didn't show up.
Exactly. And he did fine, but he didn't want to be a director.
No.
That wasn't his...
That was not his thing.
He knew he wasn't as good as the other directors. So he found... That's why he's so loyal. You find these guys that you work well with and that you trust, which is oh my God, I can't tell you how. Even on the small, teeny little levels, you know, trust is so rare in this. People that you can trust. So it's just, it's a testimony to, not only a great actor, but a great businessman in terms of knowing who needs to do what and where.
Yeah. Huggins was credited as producer for the entire run of the series, but it effectively ended his creative involvement with the show as he submitted no further material to the Rockford Files and did not involve himself in the day-to-day running of the series.
No big loss.
Yeah. I mean, Huggins is a great writer, but...
Yes, but I'm just saying...
But TV production is a process.
Yeah.
And there's a reason that people check your work.
Yes. I'd say no big loss because the quality didn't suffer after the first season.
No, it did not.
Because of that. I mean, sure, the guy's a great writer, but
Cannell, the stories were always by Huggins, and Cannell wrote the teleplays. So, like, it was always the words of Stephen J. Cannell, and he was, I really believe he was the real genius behind the show.
Stephen J. Cannell is arguably the best dramatic television producer, writer, creator of all time.
I would agree.
You look at Norman Lear for comedies. You look at Cannell for crime.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just the guy knows his stuff.
Brilliant.
He's genius.
Yeah, he was brilliant. He actually directed a couple episodes himself. Other frequent directors included William Wyard. He did 23 episodes. Lawrence Doheny, Ivan Dixon.
Ooh, from Hogan's Heroes. An actor on Hogan's Heroes.
They were all very experienced TV directors. All of them together had directed almost like 500 episodes of TV stuff. I mean, so they brought in people that knew what they were doing.
So many TV directors are ex-TV actors.
Yeah.
And they're usually like this. A lot of times the smaller actors, because they spent so much time watching what was going on, that they just kind of absorbed it.
Yeah.
They learned it by osmosis.
Easy peasy. Yeah. Veteran actor James Coburn directed an episode who had starred with Garner in a couple of movies like The Great Escape and The Americanization of Emily.
He was also in the reboot of Maverick.
Oh, yes, he was. He was great.
Yeah, I got to tell you real quick. A friend of mine worked on that. My mom is a huge James Garner fan. Like, that's her celebrity crush. And I was able for one Christmas to get a personalized autograph picture from Mr. Garner.
Nice.
For my mother. And, man, blew her away. Stepdad, super jelly. Because she loved the picture so much.
Oh, yeah. So let's talk about Rockford's car. His Pontiac Firebird Esprit.
Oh, yeah.
Starting with the 1974 model year, Rockford would get a new model year Pontiac Firebird each year throughout the series. The Firebirds use an identical copper mist color with the Esprit's exterior and interior.
Yeah, very classy.
Sexy. Although the Firebirds were badged as Esprits, they were actually the higher performance formula models without the twin scoop hood.
Well, yeah, because the low-end Esprit model's engine was like a hamster with a...
Everyone would know
with a rubber band, yeah.
No way it would keep up with any car in a car chase.
And plus all these cars in the car chases are these 60s muscle cars, man.
Yeah,
they're like...
Or they're the giant boat Cadillacs.
Yes, which also have like 5,000 horsepower under those.
They have to because they weigh 20,000 pounds.
Oh, man. And you know what, man? No matter where you were, it didn't matter if you were on grass or asphalt or in the air, them tires would screech.
Oh, yeah.
You peel out and screech on anything. Screech City.
One oft-recurring element of the show was the famous Jim Rockford turnaround, also known as a J-turn or a moonshiner's turn, commonly employed as an evasive driving technique taught to Secret Service.
Oh, man, the J-turn's so much fun.
It's great. He did it all the time. In almost every car he drove in that, he did that.
Yeah.
In the first TV movie, I Still Love L.A. in 1994, the Firebird is shown in ramshackle disrepair, parked next to Rockford's trailer. He mentions he plans to have it fixed up, but drives other cars throughout the films. The film's theme song, titled The Rockford Files, was written by noted theme music composers Mike Post and Pete Carpenter.
Mike Post wrote just about every single theme to every single action series from 1974 to 1990.
Yes, it was crazy. It appears at the beginning and ending of each episode with different arrangements. The theme song was actually released as a single and spent 2 weeks at number 10 on the Billboard Hot 100 in August 1975. But the single remained on the chart for 16 weeks and won a 1975 Grammy Award for Best Instrumental Arrangement.
As it should. I don't always skip the title. I like to hear it.
I watch it every time. It's great. And the opening is so fantastic with all the pictures. Funny little side note, for more than 40 years, the British football team Tranmere Rovers have used the Rockford theme as a walkout music for most games. Occasionally it gets dropped, and then the audience demands they bring it back.
It's now my favorite football team.
And although Ben Folds 5 is now defunct, they always used it as the last song after they got off stage. They would play the Rockford Files.
It's just Ben Folds 1 now.
Now it's just Ben Folds.
He's just folding himself.
Underline. Yeah. So the Rockford Files ran for 123 episodes. Garner was nominated for 5 Emmys during the run of the show. He won in 1977. The show went into hiatus late in 1979 when Garner was told by his doctors to take time off because his numerous knee injuries and back trouble, as well as an ulcer.
That guy gave his entire body to that show.
A bleeding ulcer that required emergency surgery.
Yes.
It was insane.
Yeah, that's from stress, whiskey, and cigarettes. And his knees had to be... This guy was doing his own stunts.
He did all his own
stunts. In his 50s, man. He would do the punching, the fighting, the falling, the driving.
Man, I just watched an episode where he drove a car. He was getting kidnapped by a guy, and he drove the car off of a cliff or like an embankment. And I was like, they just show the car go down. I was like, oh. And then all of a sudden, the camera pans back up, and he's just sliding on his stomach down. I was like, that looks so painful.
Yeah. No, he gave it all, man. There was nothing holding back.
Slid for like 25 seconds. I was just like, wow, that just keeps going.
No, he was He was a trooper, man. Well, he was one of those guys. It was his show.
Yeah,
It's my face.
Yeah, he had to do it.
I'm not letting a stunt guy. I'm not going to give the audience that BS,
Yeah.
man. I'm not going to give him the whole Star Trek. Oh, there's Captain Kirk, and then we cut, and then there's like a guy with black hair, you know,
with a really bad wig.
Yeah, and he's
you
like
can see
three
his
times
real
as big.
hair sticking out.
Exactly. Yeah, oh man,
Yeah.
he wanted quality, and he literally gave his body to that
He did.
show. And then-
Because of the toll on his body, Garner was ordered by his doctor to immediately take time off some months later, and NBC abruptly canceled the program in mid-season.
oh, they were looking for an excuse.
Yeah.
and it's not because of the reason why they say, which is losing money, because it wasn't. It was also one of the most popular shows on TV.
They did what he eventually, and I'll get to this, they eventually called it creative accounting. But they just wanted an excuse. According to sources, NBC Universal claimed the show was generating a deficit of several $1 million, not thousands like I thought.
boy.
A staggering amount for a nighttime show at the time, although Garner's production team, Cherokee Productions, claimed the show turned a profit. Garner told a story to Johnny Carson on The Tonight Show that the studio once paid a carpenter $700 to build a shipping crate for a shootout on a boat dock, although there were shipping crates already on the boat dock. They spent money for no reason,
Yeah.
and then claimed that somehow it was his production company's fault.
You know why they did that? Because one of the executives' brother-in-law was the
Yeah.
construction
Yeah.
guy, and he
Needed the
needed
money. Yeah.
to work, or the union. It's just,
It's dumb.
it's, again, I really think it was just setting a message.
Yes, exactly. They needed to say, because much like Roy Huggins, James Garner was all about creative control.
Oh, yeah.
And they hated that.
Exactly. That's why the quality never faltered
Yes.
on Rockford, because
No.
he made sure that show
From
was
beginning to
quality.
end, it was always up to his standards.
Yeah. And his standards were really high. Yeah.
In July 1983, Garner filed suit against Universal Studios for $16.5 million in connection with his ongoing dispute from the Rockford Files. The suit charged Universal with breach of contract, failure to deal in good faith and fairly, and fraud and deceit. Garner alleged that Universal was creatively accounting, two words that are now part of the Hollywood lexicon.
Quotes, but, around
Yeah,
those words.
quotes. Yeah, creative accounting. But that was the first time it was used,
Yes.
and it was true. The suit was eventually settled out of court in 1989. As part of the agreement, Garner could not disclose the amount of the settlement, but James Garner's wife has said repeatedly that for a long time he could not wipe the silly grin off his face.
Oh, yeah. I'm
So
sure it was
he
at least 10.
got a lot of money from it.
Yeah. And rightly so, man.
Yeah,
He made a lot of money for that.
He made money for them. Yes, at the end of the day, it was a huge hit for NBC.
It won awards. It was
was
extremely popular.
Yeah, I mean, they to the point where they tried to have 3 spin-offs,
Yeah.
I mean, like, they wouldn't do that if there wasn't money involved.
No.
The conflict, unfortunately, meant that the Rockford character would not reemerge until 1994. So 8 Rockford Files reunion TV movies were made between 94 and 99, airing on the CBS network instead of NBC.
Noise. All directed by Angel, Stuart
Yep,
Margolin.
Stuart Margolin. They reunited most of the cast from the original show. Barry died on November 1st, 1994, unfortunately. So the first of these films, which aired later that month, stated,
This picture is dedicated to the memory of Noah Barry Jr. We love you and miss you, Pidge.
yeah. The movies...
Pidge was
his
Barry's
nickname. Yeah, his nickname. The movies picked
Which
up...
I love.
Yeah,
Pidge.
it just shows that he was a lovable guy.
What grown man's going to let you call him Pidge unless he's just the sweetest bucket of sugar goo?
The movies picked up nearly 15 years later. They didn't try to, make it look like he was 15 years younger.
Did they still have him date 20-year-olds?
Yes. In the initial movies, Rocky is referenced as alive but is off screen. He dies within the series continuity sometime before the third movie. Garner stated that 22 crew members came out of retirement to work on these TV movies.
Nice.
Like, people that had retired, they were like,
Yeah.
okay, we're done, but no, we're going to come back and help you.
Because it's a reunion.
Why would you not?
Yeah.
Garner was nominated for 3 SAG Awards for the TV movies during this period, although he never won.
I just got to, before we get to the end,
Yeah.
just going to point out a couple of little things.
Yes.
One, Garner, is it the pilot episode with Lindsay Wagner?
Yes.
Yeah. They, from the beginning, made him a cad.
Yeah.
He was like what when he was shooting that?
Well, he was born in 28, so he would have been like 45 or 46.
Okay.
when
And
they
she
were
was
shooting.
like 22.
If even 20. Yeah, I
So
mean, she
gorgeous,
was,
by the way.
yeah,
Oh my God,
so pretty.
Still gorgeous. If you don't know who Lindsay Wagner is, she was in Death Stranding. as the mother of the main character, Norman Reedus.
Yeah.
She's also the Bionic Woman.
That one I think is
But I'm just
more
saying
people
for
will
younger
know.
people,
But yes.
you know.
she was the Bionic one. That's what I had because I was like, Lindsay Wagner sounds familiar, and I was like, oh, it's the Bionic one.
God, I had such a crush on her. I
she
still do.
was- I
He was a
mean-
dirty fighter. One of the greatest
Oh, yeah.
things is, I just point this out real quick. There's this guy, oh my God. And I think it's the same episode, the Lindsay Wagner episode.
Yeah.
This bad guy is just this roided out,
Oh my god.
like rapey, awful,
Crazy kung fu dude.
martial arts
Yeah,
guy who's
yeah.
just super buff and crazy. And Garner knows, Rockford knows he's going to come in the bathroom and beat the crap out of him. So he takes the soap from the soap container, puts it all on the floor, puts a little bit on his
So
hands,
brilliant.
grabs a roll of quarters, that he only carries that roll of quarters for
Yeah.
punchy punch. And he's just waiting. And the guy comes in, and as soon as he comes in, he's like, "Hey, you dumb muscle piece of jerk!" And then he's like, you're making up. You're trying to make up for something, huh? You're trying to overcompensate." Which I was like, "Oh, wiener joke in the '70s." But he's like, "You're a queer."
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
But it was the '70s, and so that, of course,
It
totally set the guy
it
off.
was effective.
And he slips on the thing, and he punches.
Oh my
him
god,
in
he
the thing,
tries to
and
kick,
trusses
and
him up.
it's the greatest fall ever.
Oh yeah. Oh, and he gets and he's like,
The thing about karate is you assume that the other guy's gonna fight fair.
it's a horrible Rockford impersonation, but still, it was like, oh man.
But it's true. It's true. So in 2009, NBC Universal Media Studios and Steve Carell's Carousel Television produced a revival of the show.
What were they thinking?
David Shore actually was hired to head the series, the creator of House. In February 2010, it was announced that Dermot Mulroney was cast as Jim Rockford, Alan Tudyk cast as Detective Dennis Becker, Melissa Sage Miller was cast as Beth Davenport, and Beau Bridges was cast as Rocky.
Dermot Mulroney is the opposite of James Garner. He is a wooden statue of. He has no charm. He's just
He
like.
does not have the.
He's
the
all those
gravity.
Marooney,
Yeah.
Mulrooney guys, all those Dilmut, McDermott, McRooney, McBoonies.
Dolmet McBarney.
No way is that wooden, humorless. Just no, he is not
No,
Rockford.
no, yeah.
Stop it, people.
Yeah.
They redid Magnum, which we'll talk about,
Yeah.
which infuriates me. Do not look. There is only one Indiana Jones. There is only one Jim Rockford.
Well, there was a couple Indiana Jones, but
Well, okay. Yes. There was young Indiana Joneses. Yes. But what I'm saying
I
is,
understand.
I don't want to see Chris Pratt as Indiana Jones.
No.
And I don't want to see Dilmark McDoomer as Rockford, man. It's
He doesn't. It doesn't work regardless.
Make
I
a
mean,
new
it
show.
doesn't work.
Make another. When was the last time? The last time I can remember a decent detective show was Terriers. That FX
Yeah,
show, which
yeah.
had a lot of promise, but was
Yeah.
canceled after one season with Donald Logue.
Well, I mean, but detective shows changed drastically. I mean, CSI screwed all.
But I
that
mean,
up.
like a private dick show.
Right, right,
When's the last
right.
time we had a good private detective show? I know that there's that crappy Magnum redo. It's a lost art, man.
There was I feel like TBS and USA had a bunch of
Stumptown was pretty interesting.
like White Collar was kind of but it wasn't really a private detective.
There was, I think they canceled it, but what's her name from How I Met Your Mother? Smolders.
Colby Smulders.
Colby Smulders was in this show called Stumptown, where she was like a private.
Oh
detective,
yeah,
which was
yeah.
really good. I
But
watched
it,
that.
but it didn't do but more than one season, right?
I don't know. It
Or maybe
came
it is?
around during the pandemic,
Yeah,
so it's
yeah.
one of those influx
Possibly,
shows,
yeah.
which hopefully comes back because it was that was like kind of a fun detective. It's just that's the thing is like crime shows are so serious now,
Yeah.
and they have to be so
Yeah.
dark and edgy and gory, which I love. I mean, don't get me wrong, man. I love all those shows.
Yeah, yeah.
But there is still a place for a lovable, like I'm telling you, man, I want us to make a show where we combine like Columbo and Rockford and just make this, likable,
Yeah.
no-gun guy that solves crimes. I mean, there's a place for
Yeah,
it.
I agree. I
And
agree.
and I think it's lazy that everything has to be the same and everything has to be so
It's totally
grim.
It's totally
just
lazy.
grim.
Yeah. Aye.
Give us some joy, babies.
A pilot was filmed but never broadcast. Early audiences indicated that the pilot was not directed well.
Yeah. And people were like, Dermot McDoomer
Dolrude McDermy.
is not Rockford. He's a cigar store Indian, man.
Yeah, it was not good.
He's got the emotional range of a canoe.
So in May of 2010, they pulled the plug on it. Although a feature adaptation was in production by Universal Pictures as of 2012, with Vince Vaughn associated with the project as producer and star.
Maybe. Look.
But here's the thing. I think that James Garner was still going to be in the show.
Oh, yeah.
Because after he died in 2014, the film adaptation was pretty much abandoned.
Well, that shows that Vince Vaughn's got some,
Yeah.
you know.
I could see him doing it. I mean,
If anybody,
yeah.
Vince Vaughn would definitely make a good Rumple detective show. Like, let's forget about Rockford. Let's just do
something. Yeah.
get him and then, some other frumpy guy.
Well, he'd kind of in that HBO show, True Detective. Like in his season of True Detective. I mean, he wasn't really a private investigator, but he was good in that.
He was great. I really like him a lot, and he was he was hilarious on the new episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm, and he was great in that Switcheroo Double Do movie where he was the axe murderer, the serial killer,
Freaky Friday
that turns
or
into
whatever.
the sorority girl.
Freaky?
Or whatever.
I think it was just called
It
Freaky.
just shows that he's still got that comedy. He's just still a fun guy to watch, and he to me kind of has that Garner charm.
Yes,
I
agree.
he's got the charm that it takes, and now because he's older and kind of balding and getting chubby, which I love. I just love middle-aged. I mean, I'm a middle-aged guy. I love middle-aged actors, and it's fun to see these guys that we grew up with becoming these middle-aged actors. And he just seems like a real dude, and I think he would be perfect as a charming. Look, if they want to do Rockford. I reluctantly give my blessing with him.
All right, then it's a green light because we got
hear
Jim's
that, Hollywood?
blessing.
You
Green
hear
light. All right, well, we're out of time. Do yourself a favor.
Please.
All of the Rockford Files, all the TV show is on Peacock.
Which you can watch for free with ads.
Watch them, and the ads are usually 10 seconds to 60 seconds, so it's not long, and there's only a couple breaks. But if you can get Peacock Premium or whatever it's called,
It's like $10. I don't know, but it's such a great show.
Definitely watch it. It is watchable from the beginning. It is. It's one of those shows that knew what it was from the very beginning.
Ask your dad. I watched this show with that's one of the things I'm just going to say real quick. I didn't have a great relationship with my stepdad growing up, but we bonded through TV and movies.
Yeah.
And this was one of the things that we could enjoy together.
Nice.
And I always look forward to watching Rockford with him.
Nice.
Because we both loved it. We could both be like, yeah, Rockford. So it's just like he brought, it's those kind of things that bring people together sometimes.
My dad and I did that with MacGyver.
Nice.
That was our show.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I always try to watch it with him, but yeah. But anyway, it was great. Do yourself a favor, watch it if you've never seen it. It's so great. James Garner's fantastic in it.
Amazing.
It's got great stories.
Great
It is
actors.
not typical storytelling.
Nope.
It is outside the box. It is good.
More action
highly
than
recommend
Columbo. Not as talky.
Yes.
Some great guest stars. Amazing supporting actors. It's like watching a mini movie every week.
The longest transition scenes ever in the history of Hollywood.
Well, that's going to be a theme for this month because they spent a lot of time driving and Marky Post. He got a lot. They worked his little fingers to the bone doing scoring because there was a lot of like.
Especially in the TV movie pilot. Man, like half the movie is him just driving to places.
That's how they got it made. We're going to be back next week with, the other amazing.
The Wild Rockford was the greatest private detective in the 70s.
Yes.
Magnum, greatest private detective in the 80s.
Oh, my God. And probably my favorite, just because that was my jam when I was old enough to really enjoy it. And I can't wait to talk about this. Oh, God, I love
It's going to be great.
So much.
It's going to be great.
Next week, babies.
Thanks for listening.
Mr. Rockford, this is Bob Johnson from the World Life. Mr. Johnson, Mr. Rockford, this is.
They created the Rockford character as a rather significant departure from typical defection. Wow.
We now return you to your regularly scheduled programming. Family Ties, already in progress.